Good. Now, I think we can move on to the next one. And point number three, key number three, is that rehearsal is not for learning. Yeah,
That's huge.
rehearsal is definitely not for learning. Uh, rehearsal, I more than anything treat it like a performance, and at rehearsal, you're trying to rehearse the performance. So you're supposed to come in already knowing your parts, and of course, as you see, each point ties back to each other. You want to plan, you want to communicate, and as well, you're not trying to learn stuff at the rehearsal. You're not trying to
Right.
learn this tune. You're not trying to scramble for chord sheets. You're not trying to, what was my harmony again, or wait, where was I supposed to go? And and rehearsal, you want to be able to practice at home so that when you get to the rehearsal, you're going to run through the performance. You're not there to learn your part.
Right.
You're there to run through what it is, the worship service that you're going to have on Friday, on Sunday, or midweek service. So please don't show up not knowing what to do. And then, Martin, if you want to add a little bit more to that.
I think it's that's also another thing. It's so funny that we bring that up today. As we mentioned before, um, rehearsals is meant to come and put the pieces together. I know Andrew quoted on that and putting the puzzle pieces together. Uh, just realize that as a team, you're not just it's not just you, it's your team.
Right.
So when it comes to you doing your part before rehearsal, honestly, I as a keyboard player at my church serving my leader, Abraham Hernandez, um, he really expects me to learn my part as a keyboard player and as a synth player, and so when I do my part, he doesn't have to worry about me. And so that kind of
Right.
puts a relief on his shoulders. And if we all do our parts as a team, I can only imagine how much of a relief our own worship leader would feel,
Right.
Yeah.
because he relying, he knows that we're committed to the team. And so coming to rehearsal, knowing your part is just so important because we all have a good time. I think it's so amazing. It's awesome. And if it's okay to use the word, it's fun to be in a rehearsal when we
Yeah.
all just skim through the songs, knowing the songs back to back without having to pause and to go over the songs because we have a delay.
Yeah.
I just think that's something that's really, it's huge nowadays. We have
Right.
to. I know we have our busy lives, but we have to commit into our worship team and knowing that, hey, my band members are counting on me, my worship leader is counting on me. We're all called to lead into worship.
Right.
So I think any person that's building a team, any worship leader that's starting a team, knowing that to teach and to train your team, to how to practice, because sometimes we don't all know how to practice at home.
Okay.
That sometimes does occur, and so we just need that guidance. So I think it's really important. Yeah.
All right. And so, Andrew, you want anything you want to add to this?
Yes.
'Cause this is
Um.
never enough.
Yeah. No. The way I like to see being on a worship team in terms of the stages, like you mentioned, rehearsal and practice, and you mentioned rehearsal being the performance aspect of it, and I completely agree with that. And I really feel like the first stage is practicing, knowing your part, knowing what lead line, what key you're playing that lead line in, because there'd be so many times that like you got the lead line down and be like, yeah, it's actually the key of D, not the key of
Which
E.
we had that happen a lot.
So, yes. So It's a-
Oh yeah.
another part of communication is also letting us know which key we're playing the song in.
Yes.
But the other aspect I like to see is again the performance. So when you get to Sunday, you're not performing, you're not practicing, you're not rehearsing, you're worshiping,
Amen.
and that's very much important because lots of times there'll be lots of times where I'll be there on Sundays and I'm trying to focus on making sure I'm playing these things the right way when I'm playing these chords, the majors and the minors and
Right.
just everything in between, and you lose track of worshiping, you lose track of what you're actually out there doing, and
Right.
it's not performing, it's not rehearsing, it's not practicing, it's worshiping. And again this goes hand in hand with rehearsing and playing skillfully. We can do those things and we can also worship at the same time. So
Right.
making sure that we practice it's always gonna benefit the church when it comes to Sundays.
That's good. That's
And
good.
another thing I'm gonna add on is there's times where if it helps, Andrew and I when we practice, besides rehearsal day, we'll communicate with each other. We're like, hey, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
do you wanna hang, kick it and just go over the songs on
Yeah.
a Saturday or on
Right.
a Friday, and
We're actually
so.
doing that today,
Yeah,
actually.
we actually are, and so that helps too. And if that helps you, being with somebody to go over the songs,
Mm,
call them up, text them, let them know if they want to, rehearse with you.
mm,
That's really important to have your team members to back you up as well and to support you. You know, I know when we do so, Andrew and I have this habit of looking at each other during like services of rehearsal, and we communicate through our eyes, like
Yes.
we know where we're at, we're seeing,
Throwing
you
gang
know.
signs.
Yeah.
but overall, it's because we rehearse together. Besides rehearsal day and besides Sunday worship, we tend to hang out together, throughout the week, and we're so connected.
Yeah.
We're so connected. And I think that's also huge is being connected with your team members,
Right.
and just having that flow in that culture
Yeah.
in that team.
Definitely, that's where the communication will come in, and you guys see like all these keys, they go with one another, and if you're gonna build that relationship with your team, and you want to make sure that they're
Yeah.
rehearsing, you got to
Yeah.
communicate, you got to plan, so rehearsal is definitely not the place to learn. If you've gotten your parts, you know what you're doing, you know exactly what you're singing. Rehearsal is not the place where you're trying to learn all of that. So that's a big one. Rehearsal definitely not the place to come and learn.
Right.
So we move on. We got another key number 4. And so key number 4, it has two things. It says punctuality and doing your homework. And more than anything, punctuality. We want you to show up. We want you to
So big,
definitely
yeah.
be there and be there on time.
Yes.
You have call times. You're supposed to be there at a certain time to sound check, to set up your equipment, whether you're bringing your own gear,
Mm,
whatever the case may be. You got to sound check, you got to set up stuff, you got to put up stuff. Call times, we want you to be there at the call times. We want you to be there. Give it enough time for you to kind of have your thing set up, and it's important to be there on the time that you are supposed to be there. We want you to show up, but at the same time, we want you to show up at the call time. We don't want you showing up 5 minutes before the service.
Right.
We want you there at punctual. That's the punctuality. Not only just to show up, we want you to be there at the time that you're supposed to be there. And doing your homework. I used to always go to class, and I'd be in my math class, and I'm always doing the homework that I was supposed to do the night before, right before the
Oh,
class
man.
ends, to turn it in.
Yeah.
And sometimes that'll happen with worship, where we show up, and we didn't do our homework, we didn't practice our parts, and we're trying to scramble everything, trying to get a chord chart, trying to get this 15-20 minutes before the service begins. And so you got to rehearse at home. You got to give it enough time, because it is a little bit time consuming. You have to be there early to set up. Setting up just will take time.
Yeah.
Sound checking will take time. And while other people are sound checking, you're trying to squeeze in this lick. I got to rehearse this lick.
Yeah.
While the guitar, while the drums, or while this is sound checking. And drums always take the longest.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's when people are like, when they're testing out the drums, that's when, like, let me learn this lick real quick. You're trying to watch a tutorial note for note. You don't even know the notes sometimes. You just saw the fingering, so you just copied it.
That does happen.
So
Yeah.
we want you to be there on time. We want you to show up on time, punctual, be professional, show up at the call time that you're supposed to be there, and as well do your homework for when you show up. That time is limited. Your rehearsal time is limited. In the building, it's whether it's 2 hours, 3 hours, your time is limited, and in those 3 hours, you got to set up.
Yeah.
You got to be able to run through all the sets, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to, fine tune whatever it is, whether it's a certain section of the song,
Yeah.
whether in this part, it drags a little bit, whatever the case may be. You only got 2-3 hours to get all that done. So, do your homework. Make sure you show up already having done your homework, and be there on time, please. Please show
So
up.
huge.
Martin?
Oh man, I can't emphasize enough on being on time.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the first time I went to Seal Beach, the first time that I actually transitioned, because I used to go to the Rock as well, but we have a satellite campus, the main campus, the Anaheim. But in January, when I first transitioned to Seal Beach, we just had our visual, and I haven't slept for 2 days, and I literally, fell asleep like all day Saturday, didn't have a weekend, and so my first day to present myself to play with Andrew and the team, with Abraham, was to be there at 12. That was our 12, right?
12:30.
12:30, right, see? 12:30, but and so I woke up literally at 11 o'clock. I live in Anaheim. I have to go to Seal Beach. The first day of my, of playing worship with Seal Beach, I was late. I was late. So speechless, so embarrassed, knowing that feeling, of, especially coming from me. I like to be on time to things. I like to be, on top of things. And so I think, being on time is just so important. And it just goes back to communicating, if you're going to be late, if you're running late, communicate. But if
Yeah.
it wasn't for Andrew for calling me,
Oh,
like
man.
that morning, I would have not gotten up, but most of all, communicate. I just think there's nothing worse than not having your main keyboard player show up for a service state, because the set list is set for everybody, and especially your leader, your worship leader, or if you're a worship leader, you're expecting them to be there, and so the parts are set, and the last thing you need or a worship leader needs is for someone to not be there or to show up late and not even knowing it. So I think it's so important,
How could you,
of
Mark?
going through that. I know. And it's the worst feeling too. I think it's the worst feeling when you're not doing your duties, when you're not being responsible, when you're being late. I have this guilt, like more of a like this weight on my shoulders, knowing that I have to be there on time.
Right.
So that's so important as well.
Andrew?
I always like to think that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And there's lots of times where we do either one or the other.
Yeah.
And it's really down to us. It's really down to our efforts. It's down to what it is that we're really trying to accomplish.
Right.
And again, being worship. And an example that I have is we used to have 2 English services before the Spanish. So in between English and the last English one and the Spanish service, there was only like 45 minutes. So
Okay.
like Spanish would have to come in and then be like 45, 40, depending on what time everyone got there. So we had very, very little time to set up and very little time to rehearse, very little time to sound check, and it was very hard. And it got to the point where we had to come up with an agreement to have only one service for English and then one for Spanish. So now our new call time is 12:30,
Okay.
and so we'll have from 12:30 to 1:30, which still not a lot of time, but it makes such a
Right.
massive
Oh, yeah.
difference.
Definitely.
And we actually have time to do things that we wouldn't do, because before we were like, we'd have like 15 minutes left and we're still like trying to get set up, or we're still sound check, and
Yeah.
there'll be times where we'll go through like a couple songs and like we're like, and like we have to open doors and we'll be like, okay, well, what are we gonna do for this? Because there'll be songs we didn't rehearse. Are we gonna modulate? Are we gonna, certain things that we're gonna do? Are we gonna do this bridge? How many times are we gonna do it? So it's always important to be on time. If anything, be early, because it's better to be early than to be late. Like
Right.
I even show up early, like to work, like 20 minutes, just in case anything
Yeah.
happens. And
I show up 20 minutes late
yeah, it's
to work.
To work.
it's always important to be early. I say early rather than be on time, because you never know what can happen. Or
Yeah.
sometimes service ends early, and like the English congregation will be gone by 12:10, so that leaves us from 12:10 to 1:30. And,
That's beautiful.
that's all that is, like free time to set up, to have everything extra ready. So being early is important.
I think being early is on time. And being
Yeah.
on time is
Yeah,
late.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so next time somebody shows up on time, get on their case. You gotta
Yeah.
be early.
Yeah,
Yeah. You better stop them before you like makes it a habit.
yeah.
So.
What's up, you guys? Thank you so much for stopping by and checking out the YouTube channel. Now, what I need you to do is to go down and click that subscribe button. That way you can stay up to date, get notifications, and if you also want to keep up as to when our next video is going to be released, follow me on my social medias, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, and get all the updates right there so you can stay alert as to when our next video is out. Thank you so much.